Hello. It's 8:16:22. We will have the HHS and Finance Audit and Budget meeting today. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I'm Commissioner Zinner, and Commissioner Sabatini will be taking the other meetings later, the other meeting later. I need now an adoption or a movement for the adoption of the agenda, please.
Romano adopts the agenda.
Support Van Sickle.
Barb, could you speak into the microphone? We can't hear you.
Commissioner Romano moved on this, and Commissioner Van Sickle seconded. We'll take a vote, please.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. We will now have an approval of the minutes, please, or a motion on the approval of the minutes.
So moved. Support.
Commissioner Hall made the movement, and support was by Commissioner Van Sickle again. Take a vote, please.
Sabatini votes yes.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. We are now going into public participation for anything that is on the agenda. Anyone can speak for 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak about anything on the agenda?
If I could, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Don Frizard. I'm the Chief Assistant in the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office. I just wanted to say a few points about some things that we have up today. My wife was an assistant prosecutor here in the 80s, and I had a private practice in Macomb County from about 1980 till about 2003 at 11 Mile and Jefferson. And what we have today is not your father's prosecutor's office. Things have changed dramatically. And so things have changed not just in different crime levels and in the seriousness of the crimes, but things have changed in public attitudes, and things that we never saw that we would have thought of 20 or 30 years ago are now very real. So there are a few positions that are critical to have people who are highly competent, highly qualified, and they demand that kind of money to do that. And one of them is the communications director. In Wayne County, the communications...
Excuse me. Is this on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on the agenda for the amendment of 2 of the positions that have been approved by the Court of Appeals. So with the communications director, these positions, they went through HR, LR, and labor relations. They looked at them. Angie Burke from our office is going to talk about that for a minute. And in Wayne County, Marie Miller gets about $120,000 to do the same job that we're looking for $90,000 to do here. Because it has to be somebody who has substantial legal experience, substantial prosecutorial experience, and they have to be able to say the right thing and say the right facts, but also comply with the rules of ethics. Because if you give out too much information before it's been published in court, it's an unfair advantage to the prosecutor's office against the defendant. And the defendant, at the end of the day, it's better to have thousands of guilty people go free than one innocent person get an unfair trial and go to prison. So I just wanted to bring those points up. These dollar amounts were already the topic of discussion with the executive's office. They've already been decided by the court. Typically, in the legal world, we would call this the law of the case, where you don't go back and start revisiting things that you already talked about and already decided out. So I just wanted to point those things out, and I think that based upon the salaries in Wayne County for this and for the executive position, these are both substantially less than that. We're almost up to 1 million people here. Things change, and we have to get good people to do these jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to say something?
Hi, my name is Angela Burke. I am the office manager for the prosecuting attorney's office. I'm here on the same motion that Don just spoke of at this point. This is a motion that was filed in conjunction with finance and HR. We were not notified of this. We only found it by printing the agenda today. I can tell you that from the beginning, when we were putting in these budgets last year, the request was a request for an executive assistant and a communications director. We went by the guidelines that were given to us from the finance department. I know we did bring up exhibits that Pete will probably talk to you about in a minute. The max was the $90,000 that we are talking about. When we looked off the pay scale at the beginning of the year, the pay scale we were asking for was a level 12. I believe that both positions qualify for that level. I believe that we have requested it the proper way. I believe that the Court of Appeals has come back with their decision. And I believe, sorry, I'm a little nervous. I believe that they are appropriated properly and that we should not have finances deducted from our personnel budget, especially without us knowing at this point. We prepared as much as we could today, and I believe that's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to say something?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I appreciate you because I get to see you so often lately. Look, I gave you all a handout. If you follow the handout from the beginning of time, this is how it works. You prepared the budget, you as the county-wide elect. That's the first page. It was prepared on and submitted on 7/17/21. You can clearly see that we asked for the communications director and the executive assistant to the administration at $90,000, and where we got it from, it wasn't made up. We looked at this comp study they're talking about. This was all brought to the Court of Appeals, this comp study. That's what their arguments are now. In addition, if you look at the second page that was submitted on 8/18/21, this came back from the finance department. So it was well known that they readjusted the figures and came down to the package on those two positions. That's the second page. The third page clearly indicates that we received on 9/20, which was them saying, you have these positions, but we won't give you these positions, still at the same amount of money. Never changed anybody. Not one time. In fact, Angie, what she spoke about was we worked with Human Resources, who said, get the job descriptions as to what you want for these positions. We have a PIO, it's called, a Public Information Officer. It's not what we want. We're talking 28 law enforcement agencies in this county and almost 1 million people. We're talking about these 28 agencies that we have to service. Go to the third page on here because you can see this is where on 2022, that would have been when the budget would have started. We're still 14 months into this, not getting these jobs posted after going to the Supreme Court. You can see pay grade 12, if you follow it all the way across, shows $88,729.12. That was back in January 22, but the next page afterwards, it was a 2% increase in this county as of May. And we were using 12, and it shows 90,000. Exactly what we asked for. We calculated these numbers. We submitted them to the finance department. We went through the painstaking effort of going ahead, creating a job description that we thought was appropriate based on the two other counties, our sister counties. And I can remember Commissioner Hall saying, what an exhaustive review of what you've done. Why did I go through all this and submit it if this is going to be the way we're going to do this? I did it the right way. This board approved it. They had the ordinance intact. It went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court, and now you guys want to say, you know what? We're going to have to revisit all this? You take the wind out of the arguments that were made to the judges because they never objected. They didn't object over in the finance department. Why am I making any claim to going up there and presenting? Why am I making any claim here? if this is what's going to happen after a lawsuit. The lawsuit was because the board granted something of the budget, and then I had to go ahead and look at the way the charter reads, and we do know the way the charter reads now. But again, I even communicated with the new Director of Human Resources in my letters that are attached. This is the first time, ever since the court has made its ruling, that I'm hearing for the first time, well, we can't do this because we have a case comp study. We had a case comp study back in July of 2021 when I presented my budget. We still have a case comp study now. Unfortunately, they say the square peg won't fit in the round hole. That's not what the judge said, and it's not what this board said. It's unfortunate, but I'll tell you what is fortunate. We're using their comp study, which is attached. The schedule that's attached to everybody is theirs, not mine. January 2022, and again, May, when the 2% increase came. I want to use grade 12 because I think they deserve that kind of money to get the appropriate people in here to do the work for the people of this county. No joke. You know what? Communications is important because it's called transparency to this community. No joke. Somebody who's working with 7 different administrators up there, we don't have that. Angie's doing it all. And we've been written up for out of class and everything else. It's time to get serious and get back to work. And I would appreciate everybody holding firm to give me the right tools to do this job. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up for public comment about anything? Thank you. Public comment is now closed. We have
Your mic's not working again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Veteran Services. Oh, you
So,
brought a friend.
I'm just
Chair,
doing my
make a
due
motion
diligence.
to receive and file.
Oh, thank you. I distracted
Um,
everybody.
Commissioner Song made the movement, and Commissioner Wallace supported.
I just want to start by, I'm fostering this one from animal control, doing my due diligence. This one was left at their front gate a week ago. So I've only had him a couple days, but unfortunately, he needs a shot every day. So that just means he has to come to work every day. So, but anyway, besides that, all right. So I do have some things to go over. You have my quarterly report. I noticed today when I was reviewing my zip code, everybody liked the zip code? That helps? But the totals don't match, if you noticed. 2,000 plus 500 doesn't equal 5,000. So I think what happened on our Excel spreadsheet, it included the 2022 at the top. So obviously, there's just a little typographical error there on the totals at the bottom. But as far as your zip codes your totals per zip code is correct. Why do we have 577? Because sometimes when they make a quick phone call, we don't know where they live, so we just put other. And then we still take care of people that we started here in Macomb and then they moved. That's still my case. They're an appeal. Do you really want someone to not take care of your case when it's an appeal? You want the person that started it to take the appeal. So the last thing I want to bring up, which actually just passed into law last week, so it's not on your agenda, but you might have heard about it. It's called the PACT Act. It actually it's like 4 pages of changes. I have a Cliff Note version here, but the 4 pages of changes are Gulf War, burn pits, atomic energy, Vietnam. It now opens health care to over 900,000 more veterans that were not eligible for health care just prior to Wednesday. So that, along with the 7,000 postcards that go out every month, which have really increased our phone calls, we are now, answering that call and making those appointments and getting those claims in. I would say the biggest thing on here that I see that I am doing every single day, and so is every counselor, is hypertension was added to the Agent Orange list. I have hundreds of veterans that submitted a claim for hypertension, was denied. Now I have to open an appeal, and now I'll go back to the day of the original claim. So that's great. It's not great that they have hypertension, though. So, and I have widows waiting for that to pass so they can get the widows' benefits. But big news, if you kind of keep track of what's going on in the news, the PACT Act is a game changer. It's a game changer to me because I was exposed to the burn pits. It's a game changer to anybody in the Gulf. And it's a game changer to Vietnam vets. And what's the big thing? They just added Thailand, Laos, to presumptive for Agent Orange. We've been fighting those cases for 10 years in appeals. We've been winning them, but now they finally said, okay. We sprayed it, but we only sprayed it on the area by the fence. If you didn't work at the fence, you didn't get it. Yeah. You know, that's enough. So the VA conceded and that's signed into law now. So any questions? Anybody want pets? You know, some cuddles?
Yes, Laura, we have a couple commissioners that want to speak to you.
Okay.
Commissioner Song, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would love to pet him. It's adorable. Just a quick question about the zip codes. I noticed there was, at the bottom, was Warren 48397. That's not a residential code, so,
So that's a typo on our part.
okay.
That's a typo. Because I have over 15, 18 people putting in zip codes now. That I'm telling you right
Okay.
now, that's,
I
I
did
will
look
definitely
that up.
catch that. I will catch that and put that under
Well,
other.
I did look up that zip code, and it's actually the Army base on Mound and
Oh,
696.
and there's no housing
Does
there.
anyone live there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
There's
All right.
housing on Selfridge. Maybe one or two people might live there, maybe. But,
Got it.
yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matusek?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really glad that the direct mail stuff is working and we're getting the word out and people are calling. That's really important. I'm also personally excited about this new change in the law. Particularly, I have a brother who served in Laos and has serious effects of Agent Orange that he has never been able to really claim.
Let's see if we can get his claim done before he passes away.
Exactly.
That's our goal.
And it's like, at this point, it's a rush to do that. But because of the number of veterans who were assumed not to have a cause and now are assumed to have a cause, that obviously is going to increase our potential number of veterans seeking services pretty dramatically. I'm assuming when you're looking at the budget for next year, you're going to take this into account because as this news spreads,
We're ready.
you're ready.
No,
All
we're
right.
ready. We're totally, I mean, the 9 counselors are actually trained, ready to go. They can see 4 to 5 appointments a day. Our walk-in centers will see up to 16 people a day. So it's,
So you think you can handle the capacity?
totally can handle
the way
it.
it is?
I'm 100%,
Okay, that's great news.
100%.
Because I think there's going to be a real influx of folks who need services.
And I hope they do.
Exactly.
Because I know it'll probably take a year before they'll get a letter from the VA saying, oh, we see you put in a claim ago, and now you have to refile for it. They're not going to automatically do anything. So you have to physically refile for it. So, and when you've got 40,000 veterans, I'm like, I didn't keep track of who had hypertension, who had heart disease. That's not something we keep. I mean, if I look in every single file, the 20,000 files that we have, then we can figure it out that way, but 20,000 files. So I'm just hoping this mass marketing will do well. The other thing I did want to bring up is Pat Daniels is putting it together right now, where we are going to do 3 town halls just about the changes in the PACT Act. And I'm hoping, because a lot of that has to do with Gulf War, so we need to do in the evening. So we sat down and said, okay, let's do Shelby. Let's do right outside our door, which is the American Legion, right here on Groesbeck and Mount Clemens. And I want to do Warren. And I've got one of my veterans commissioners looking at doing it at the City Hall. And I said, please reach out to you, because it's really getting the community involved and getting the word out once we get those dates available to do the town hall. Because there's just so many people that live under the rock. They work, they have kids, they have this, and we need to get them. They need their benefits. So, any other questions?
Laura, I don't see anybody else up. I think we'll take a vote here. And we are good to go. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
Thanks for bringing the puppy in.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. We are now going to go to the MDHHS. Andrew Cox, please. Can I get a motion to recommend to full board?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Song moved and Commissioner Wallace supported. Hi, Andrew. What do you have for us today?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Hope all of you are having a good afternoon so far. Come before you to ask for an amendment to our CPBC grant funds from MDHHS in the amount of $24,300 to help support the Southeast Michigan Infant Vitality Project. This project, what it's going to do is offer listening sessions for the Southeast Michigan area, specifically for the Nurse Family Partnership, targeting families that have successfully utilized the service to hopefully help others in the state. So they're going to get information. We're going to hear from our families on what's worked for them, and put that in a report and share those success stories and best practices. So a lot of this time, a lot of this grant will be going towards personnel expenses of our own staff to help support the listening sessions, the strength-based sessions, and then also ultimately get that data over to our contractor with the state that the state has picked out, so that they can look at not only Macomb data, but also Detroit, Wayne, and Oakland County, who are also partnering in this project in Southeast Michigan. So hopefully you approve it. I think it's a worthwhile project, and looking forward to answering any questions you might have about it.
Andrew, were the children in this babies? Or were they primarily
So
babies?
this is the Nurse Family Partnership. So
Yes.
this is first-time mothers that we've worked with
Yes.
to understand what worked for them and what didn't. So hopefully we can understand better. It's essentially a focus group, and we'll do that virtually just because a lot of the clients prefer virtual right now.
So these babies weren't necessarily premature or necessarily, they were just starting up. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think we will take a vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I think we're all set.
Thanks.
Ernest, if you want to come up, can I get a motion for a motion to full board for Ernest for B, please?
So moved by Nard.
Support
We can
Van Sickle.
can we do B and C? Is there support? Thank you.
Yeah, I support it.
The motion was made by Commissioner Nard and supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Hi, Ernest.
Hi, thank you all. Well, I know you have a lot on the agenda today. I just have 4 quick ones for you. This first one is just some filing for the Sarah 2. If you remember, we've gone through a lot of back and forth with Sarah. We have Treasury and MSHDA. This is just catching up with the award that MSHDA gave us. If you remember, we got Sarah 1 and 2 from Treasury for $26 million each. We got 19 from MSHDA, and then they took back some for Sarah 1, gave us more for Sarah 2. So the totals that you know haven't changed. If you look at the contract here, this was awarded May of 21, and then given an active period in January 22, and wasn't given us to sign till April of 22. So this is just some catch up we're doing with MSHDA to reconcile that original award we got for Sarah. What I can tell you, if you're looking for updates here, is We continue to finalize the SARE applications we have in the pipeline. If you remember, I let you know in June that they were closing down that portal to make sure that people had enough money to spend for the eligible applicants. Prior to that, we were getting about 700 applications a month. In June, when they announced they would close it, we got 2,000 applications. And so we still are working through that backlog. To date, we've spent over $65 million for landlords and tenants on the SARE assistance. We have about 2,000 applications still pending that we're reviewing, and we believe that's pretty close to the mark to finish spending out the money that we received so far. And as every agency is doing around the state, as we get toward that, we'll be working with MSHDA, Treasury, and others to true up any outstanding applications that are unfunded.
Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Ernest. I reached out to you a couple weeks ago about a resident who also knew other residents that had a similar issue with filing their paperwork and it getting misplaced or things like that. With all this new money coming in, I guess what's being done to remedy that situation and to safeguard it in the future so that doesn't continue to happen?
That's right, and we do have a lot of diligence around that program. I can tell you somewhat similar to the landlord you forwarded to us. Some people applied once and thought that they would get a second payment without applying again. There's a recertification process if you have to reapply. And so now that the portal's closed, we are getting complaints from people that said, well, I thought I was going to get more money. You have to apply a second time. Just because your tenant still is not paying, you're not automatically receiving SARE funds. There's a timeline there. So we are doing a lot of troubleshooting with those landlords and tenants to make sure that they understand that they had to apply again to be reviewed again.
Thank you, Ernest. Just FYI for my fellow colleagues in case you guys run into a similar situation that I did. Thanks, Ernest. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, I think we can take a vote on these two.
Oh, did you want me to cover B? Or I'm sorry, C?
Oh, I'm sorry, C. Yes, we have C.
C
Yes, you can,
is
yes.
another, a small grant here, just $4,500. Every year we work with the Delta Dental Foundation to support our Head Start children and families. Traditionally, they've given us in-kind supplies, toothbrushes that we give out. This year we'd asked if we could package our own supplies, little toothbrushing kits for kids with books and other things. So instead of the in-kind supplies we usually get, they gave us the $4,500 to make our own packages and distribute them to the kids. And if you don't know about Head Start, one of the things we do is we do brush teeth in the classrooms to teach that behavior. So that's why Delta Dental supports us every year with this.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Chair. So if I'm reading this correctly, Ernest, it indicates they are looking for $4,500 for health information and materials. What type of information and materials?
So that's the Delta Dental's catch-all term for the packages they usually give us. So we're getting a little kit where they'll have all their toothbrushing stuff. We'll have a book about hygiene, and I mean, it's just
that's enough said.
It's cutesy stuff that kids would like.
that I can accept. Information and materials, a little ambiguous.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Can someone move for this to go to full board? We only did A and B.
Chair, I thought we did B, C, and D.
No. I only. Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Can the motion maker clarify what motion they made?
We made a motion for B and C.
Yes, yes, thank you. So shall we vote on those three? Because I want to talk about D. We'll take a vote on these three.
I think we already voted on this. I've already voted twice. I'm going to vote a third time just for the fun of it.
Can we get a motion for D and E, please?
So move, Hall.
Support Romano.
The motion was made from Commissioner Haw and supported by Commissioner Romano. You want to explain D, please?
Absolutely. So these are related categorically. The first one is just an accounting procedure. What they ask us to do, you'll see that this says an increase of $351,000. What we have to do mid-year is project, even though we're on a fiscal year, how much money will be available at the start of the calendar year. And as you know, this is for the non-entitlement communities. And so with your packet there, you have all the projects that were proposed. These are controlled by your township trustees and city commissioners in your municipalities. We're simply helping to administer and ensure they meet compliance and review. These are their projects. For instance, East Point had backed out. A lot of people are slow on rolling out their construction projects. And so when we project how much we think will be available in the calendar year, it's a projection. And so as people have been slower to implement projects, this is no more award funding. This isn't $351,000 of extra funding. This is just truing up our calendar year projections for available funding. Because people have been slower to implement the projects they proposed, there's going to be more money available to be spent in the next year for the calendar year. So this is simply reconciling our forecast with what we believe is actual due to slower spending of the grants that were awarded. And for E, you can see this is substantial amendment number 6 for the 2019 funds. We may yet get to number 7. Again, this is something that we do, and you're going to be seeing 2020 and 2021 for substantial amendments 5, 6, and 7, probably 2 in the coming years. This is just us reconciling with actual projects. If you see on page 51, the East Point project was canceled. Of course, that causes us to shift some things around. If you remember, the last amendment we had was around the amended budget for job training. You may remember we got the RTIG funding to support career education and technical assistance. That funding was for the entitlement communities, and this was to support the non-entitlement communities. And so we're simply truing it up as we go along. And the major change here was that, again, we continue to see rent and utility assistance needs. And so an expedient way, we talked with HUD about the projects. They're concerned across the country about the slow pace of construction, rising labor and bids, and returning to bids. And so we had proposed to them putting this in the holding pattern under Macomb County, Macomb Community Action, New Activity. You see that there's an asterisk on the page for anything that was amended, whether it's at canceled, amended, or new activity. So what's being presented to you today is that new activity that we will utilize to meet the deficit that was created through those other projects that were delayed or canceled.
All right, we'll take a vote. I don't see speakers. Hang on. Go ahead, Commissioner Matusek.
Well, Commissioner Zong is ahead of me here. What happens when we do more than one thing at a time? Our machines don't.
All right. Commissioner Song,
Right,
were you
the
first?
details
I'm sorry.
button, though.
Thank you,
I
Chair.
lost everything. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Chair. Hi, Ernest, how are you? So
Thanks.
just a quick question regarding 7D. When the grants are awarded, is there a deadline or like a timeline that is given for them to spend the funds?
For the CDBG funding?
Yes.
I mean, it is supposed to be spent within that period, the 3-year period of it, and it can roll over, and there is potential for carry forward or return funding if something was extended and altered. And so that's why oftentimes we're managing a lot of these. But with these CARES funds, this was a special allocation of the CDBG-CV related to coronavirus. So as long as we have confidence that they can execute them, we can work with them.
So it's a 3-year period?
Traditionally, yes.
Okay, but not for this special fund?
For this special fund, it really relies upon the municipality. Again, these are not controlled by the county, these are facilitated by the county. So, the city commission and mayor in East Point are the ones evaluating that project and either returning to us to request changes or amendments or telling us they no longer want to move forward with it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Matusek, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know me, I like a nice, neat, straight timeline, and you guys are always looping back and coming around, which is always very confusing to me. But you did explain this. My question is a related or a companion question to all the things we've been talking about. And that has to do with the issue of climate change and rising temperatures. We spend a fair amount on utility bills. I want to be clear that that covers air conditioning as well as heating in the winter. I'm wondering about our home repair programs that look at furnaces. Do we also look at AC units. I think that rising temperatures we've seen over the last few years are really critical to people. And in this country, unfortunately, we've had a long history of thinking that air conditioning was a luxury item that poor people didn't need. That's been the case for decades. And so I'm hopeful that our programs are addressing that in some way.
It's a bit of a nuanced answer. So while yes, in general, we do provide weatherization, which can provide temperature regulation, we do not cover air conditioners. We cover furnaces. That's both at the state and federal legislation level. The only option there is that we also cover heat pumps. And if you're familiar with these things, so heat pumps are an air exchange which both allow it to stay warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer, which would be the only present intermediary under the allowable guidelines that we would cover cooling, we cover insulation, we cover weatherization, we cover furnaces. We cover utility assistance for electricity, which covers the AC unit. We do not cover AC units, it's not allowable. The heat pump is the only intermediary that we could pursue that would provide a fraction of the coverage, but it's not the same as the air conditioning unit itself. That would require some advocacy at the state and federal level to get that included.
Thank you. I think this is a growing concern that we need to take a look at. It's whether you believe climate change is man-made or a natural cycle, the fact is it's getting hotter, and heat kills far more people than cold does. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think we'll take a vote now.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you. We also have correspondence of what every veteran should know newsletter. There's always great information in that, but especially for the veterans, this is packed full of information for the veterans. It's really action-packed. I mean, I don't think that you could get anything more into the letter. It's really, really important for the veterans to look at this, and anyone who's related to a veteran. So be sure to look at what every veteran should know newsletter.
Motion to receive and file.
Thank you. Van Sickle moved and Haw seconded, supported. Thank you. That's it for HHS. We will now go to, let's vote. Thank you.
Motion passes 13-0.
We will now go to Finance, to Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trying to get back to my agenda here. My computer just froze. Okay. Item 10A, fiscal year 2021 annual comprehensive financial report. I need a motion to receive and file this.
Support Nard.
Made by Wallace, supported by Nard. And we have Steve Adair here to, I believe, kick this off.
All
Thanks,
right.
Steve.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm here today to introduce Plant Moran, our auditors, specifically Lisa Plonka and Dave Harrington, who are going to present the results of the 2,000 hours. I'm probably about 600 of those 2,000. The rest of it is our analyst, our accounting manager, and a special shout out I'd like to make right now to Alice Grange, who actually retired as the accounting manager of Macomb County's finance department here on June 30. Her efforts through the years have been exemplary, and she is going to have huge shoes to fill here in the coming months. The whole team, though, is exceptional, and we continue to fill in as there's been some vacancies during this last audit cycle. Everybody knows what the goals are. We have a good project plan, and we achieve it. And really, that's not just Steve or myself or even Alice. It's really every analyst and even a lot of folks in departments around the county who are key. I mean, for that matter, even Mr. Shapko I'll call out here, because without him, we wouldn't have that wonderful general liability work paper he gives us every year.
I'm just picking on John because he's here. But there's countless examples like that around the county as well. So on that note, I'll introduce the team from Plant Moran to do the presentation. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Steve, for the introduction. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to present the results of the December 31st, 2021 audit report, and this audit to be issued and submitted to the state in a timely fashion, which it was again this year. So we do appreciate that. Again this year, as opposed to going through each of the letters and deliverables that we provide, and certainly the 200-plus page ACFR report with you in great detail, we've put together some slides just to highlight key points, but certainly are happy to answer questions as I go through things. This first slide just summarizes the resulting deliverables from our audit process, all of which were dated June 23rd of 2022. First is our independent auditor's report on the ACFR that you'll find early in the pages of that large bound document that you received. That is our primary contribution to the ACFR and indicates what is referred to as an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion and indicates that that resulting financial report, which is accumulated by your finance department, is materially correct and stated in accordance with all of the applicable governmental accounting standards. So highest level of assurance that we can provide and what you should expect to see in each year's audit. The second bullet here is the independent auditor's report to the audit committee, which highlights more of the qualitative factors of how the audit went or anything unusual that was encountered. So I'll get into that in a minute. And then we also have a separate letter, which is our report on internal control in relation to the financial statements. Just a quick summary here. As we reported to you before we got into the audit process, we do assess the risk of material misstatement in all of our clients. There were a few things that we identified as potentially more challenging or riskier areas where we would put more emphasis in the audit. All three of these were continuing things that we've noted at the county. This wasn't anything new that popped up this year, but we summarized these again just to indicate we did spend additional time looking at alternative investments, which are inherently more difficult to value. We did not encounter any significant issues in that testing. Same thing with taking a look at how the county has different funds that are on different year ends, so not everything is on a December 31st year end, but that's been the situation for many years and was handled appropriately again this year. The last bullet we have on here relates to compliance with spending requirements on the significant amount of federal grants that are received by the county. We are still in the process. There's a separate engagement called the single audit that is still in process that isn't due until September 30th, so that's still in process, and we'll have a separate report on that when that's completed. A quick summary of our responsibilities under the audit standards. As I indicated, our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements as a result of our testing, which is what we've done in that audit report. This is in order to obtain reasonable assurance, but certainly is not absolute, indicating that we don't look at every single transaction that goes through the county, but use our judgment to focus our efforts. Overall, we did conduct the audit according to the plan, scope, and timing. There weren't any significant surprises or unusual matters that we were not expecting when we got into the audit. And really, in December for 2021, there were no big changes in the accounting practices, no big auditing standards. There are lots of those to come over the next few years, so we have some discussion of that in our communication to the board. But Steve is already well aware of those and planning for their implementation in the future. And a few other required communications would be to let you know about significant accounting estimates. These are all the same as in previous years. Looking at liabilities for pension and OPEB requires a significant amount of estimates, as does that wonderful schedule by John Shopka about all of the ongoing litigation that may be out there impacting the county, and then the valuation of alternative investments, Besides that, there really was no other matters of significance related to the audit to be communicated. We had no significant difficulties or disagreements with management, and as I said, it was a fairly smooth audit process, I'd say. In the separate letter specific to internal control, we did have one matter that we reported to the board, which is classified as a significant deficiency in internal control. There is standard language and evaluation that we follow in order to classify internal control deficiencies that we note. This one was specific to the Department of Public Works and some controls over the ability to disperse funds out of certain bank accounts. We did not notice any or did not note any inappropriate expenditures having been made. This was really an issue where there was the potential for bills to be paid without duplicate or dual authorizations, where one individual could both initiate and approve a disbursement. That was not done from what our testing shown. This again is just an communication that that possibility was there, and we recommend that it be addressed. The next few slides focus on financial results for the year ended December 31st, 2021. We're focusing specifically on the general fund, with that being the largest operating fund for the county. We have a 4-year history of revenue being shown here. We can see that in 2021, revenue did decrease from $266 million to $245 million. The most significant factor impacting that is federal and state grants. As we know, in 2020, there was a large influx with the initial rounds of CARES funding, which did not recur in 2021. So really, besides that, I believe all of the other revenue categories were similar to 2020 or slightly increased over the previous year. In terms of general fund expenditures, we do see a corresponding decrease in expenditures as well. I would say no categories of significant note here. Most are very consistent with the prior year and really the year before that, other than transfers to other funds, which decreased from $75 million to $40 million, which we'll see on the next slide really was a result of funding for capital projects that occurred in 2020 but did not repeat in 2021. In terms of the general fund, transferring money to other funds to support capital projects. So as a result of the general fund revenues exceeding expenditures, what we have here is a slide that's showing the fund balance of the general fund as a percentage of general fund expenditures. So I think these numbers will look familiar to you with what is presented by the Finance Department. So we do see an increase of that percentage in 2021 from 26.7% to just over 41%. So we do see an increase in the fund balance of the general fund in 2021.
First Commissioner Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming in. I guess 2 questions. Asked this last time, I'll ask again. Comparable clients in size, municipalities, counties, whatever. Having only 1 finding, I think last year was 2. How does that compare?
That is a real testament to the quality of your staff. It's extremely difficult with the number of departments and independent community mental health, Martha T. Berry, things like that, each running sometimes autonomously but under everybody's authority. To have one is outstanding. You know, from our perspective, the quality and the talent that the county has is a direct reflection to your internal controls, the compliance with them, and your numbers. It's a very complex audit, a very complex community, and to be able to get through all of it. I was teasing Steve earlier. I said, you know, if you guys didn't know what you're doing, we'd still be auditing. So there's no way we would have made the June 30th deadline. So it's a tip of the hat to a number of departments, starting with the team we hang out with, the finance group.
Thank you. And actually, I knew that answer, so tell Schmiegel I put that one up on a T for him. Okay.
Schmiegel missed out. He doesn't get any of those props.
Steve Adair, if you can come up, I just have a question about the one finding. Regarding the deficiency in the Department of Public Works, it's about the online banking portal. It said they're no longer going to use it from an operational perspective. They put it there for a reason to use it. I mean, how does that hurt us in efficiencies in any other ways by getting rid of the portal?
I would say the short answer to that is that in our mind, in finance's mind, it definitely does not hurt any efficiencies. There may have been conditions that existed in the past when it was set up that, when we were running checks less often, for example, and when the workforce was more remote, that I think may have facilitated that. However, you'll want to confirm that with
Brian
Public
Baker
Works.
is good with it all?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. As soon as it was brought to their attention, to be very clear, they weren't even using it in the way that it could potentially be misused.
I was wondering why, and then you
very
said
clearly.
the remote, that makes sense. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was just an immediate flip of a switch when they found out about it, because they themselves didn't know that it was there like that.
Very good. Kudos to your group. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Was last year's issue resolved? What was the follow-up to last year's notations?
So yes, they were resolved. As in past, if we start with last year's, and if they haven't been addressed, they get a repeat appearance in this year's. So yes.
Okay. And
which we talked about with the audit committee in the pre-audit meeting. I have a commissioner smiling at me, so she knows exactly what we're talking about. So.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dave, I've got a few questions. In regards to Macomb County, stacking up to other counties, where do we stand? I know you do a lot of audits throughout the state.
Correct.
As far as where we stand financially, our systems, procedures, what would you give us as a grade?
Great question. So, we put you in that category of, geographically, we're not as large as Oakland County, but we have an equal amount of complex, and actually some more complex items because of the diversity of our county, which gets addressed in the numerous programs we have. And so I would say you've done an outstanding job. This is a well-run community. Fiscal responsibility is, I've been here my whole life. There were years I was convinced the commissioners, you all had your communion nickels. It was very, very stringent, but I think it was a smart spend. If you saw that last slide that Lisa presented, you saw a strong fund balance, and then it went down. It's still strong, but it allowed you to do some projects. And this group hasn't been afraid to do some projects to improve the services to the community and make some tough decisions. I remember in 08, 09, a lot of tough decisions were done by this board and all the departments. But at the same time, services were still kept at a very high level. And we're in a unique spot because we're right on the water here. And so how we really focused on the whole community, the environment, and then we've got the south end, north end. I live kind of in the middle end. It's a special community, and being able to handle its diversity and the influx of new residents that we've seen over the last decade. I think we all could improve in every way, and always should. But I think a lot of good has been done, and we're proud to have worked alongside many of you for the last decade.
So in regards to the deficiency, I'm sure this is normal practice. I know we have someone staffed there at Public Works. Do you see that as a risk, having someone separate than being housed there rather than all of our accountants housed in one location?
Due to the uniqueness of many of your situations, that's very common in a county. So in a community, in a township or city, usually you bring them all together. But in your situation, I think there's a lot of wisdom to it if you have the right people, and they are held accountable to their supervisors, to the bigger picture, the treasurer. Just as long as everybody, the cross checks are there. It adds complexity without question, but it increases timely response, which I think is really important in a county service thing, because you could get bogged down in bureaucracy on small items if you don't have on-the-ground folks. So I think it's not a universal, you got to look at each particular situation and say, what is the best move? Because if we said, oh, we got to make a quick decision over here at Martha T. Berry to run it up without having some accountants there and say, hey, is this within the budget? And then, we got to hear from finance, and finance is spending 600 hours doing the audit, 2,000 hours. I think this allows for some, it's a tightrope, but I think every department, as you go through turnover, you evaluate, but I think a lot of more right decisions are made than not.
Okay. Well, thank you again. I don't see any other speakers, and I think we're ready for a vote.
Thank you. We'd just like to thank the board. We've enjoyed this last decade and wish you the best. Take care.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item is 10B, Finance Department, the 2022 second quarter financial report. I need a motion to receive and file. Made by Farrington, supported by Wallace. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm ready to take any questions you may have about the report at this time.
Not wasting any time, Steve.
Just following the boss's lead. That's how he likes to do it.
I can't even get to my agenda item yet. Okay. Is there any highlights? Let me ask you that, Steve.
You know, the biggest one I'd point out to you is actually around let's see, it looks like you're page 322. The CARES Act fund, of course, the biggest item in there was our CRF, Coronavirus Response Fund grant. That ended in 21, so you're seeing quite a drop-off in expenditures. So that's the biggest reason for that. Community mental health is on a new accounting system, so they do a series of monthly journal entries that we're still working out the kinks of. So you're seeing activity that's actually a little bit behind June 30, so that's why you see that down quite a bit compared to last year. It's not that it's actually down, it's just that these numbers are being pulled from the one solution system. And then roads looks like they're up quite a bit, and that's, I think we are all driving on roads in Michigan right now, so we know the reason for that. I don't need to tell you. And then substance abuse is a part of CMH and also in that new accounting system, so the same reason as CMH above. So those are the biggest items when I go down there at a glance and look at your year-to-date expenditures versus this time last year that stick out to me. But again, if there's any additional questions, if I don't know them, I will get them in writing for you and send them over.
Obviously, it's halfway point, for our general fund.
Yeah.
In regards to September 30th year ends, is there anything there that is at risk in the next 90 days that we need to be aware of as far as funding or?
Nothing that I'm in the loop on as far as being in danger of, are you speaking about maybe going over budget or losing funding or
either or?
Both? Haven't heard anything like that. I will say we do have struggles right now with some of our grants because of all the inflationary pressures on and what that's done to salaries, and that's probably going to play out more in 23, but it's played out a little bit in our child care fund actually here in 22 because of all the upward pressures on the wages and the fringe rates and so forth that are creating problems where funding sources increases that are baked in are not keeping up with that, and that's a statewide problem, not necessarily a county problem, but something that the board should be cognizant of as we move into budget season. You'll see some big requests that if these granting agencies aren't doling them out to us, there may have to be some reductions in administration, but that's still in process.
Okay. Chair Brown.
Thank you. Have we received any money from the opioid settlement yet? And if so, what fund would that be put in?
I'm sorry, the what settlement?
Opioids. The opioid settlement.
I'd have to check into that. I have not personally seen it, but I'll have to check into that.
Thank you.
I hear a no in the crowd from Deputy County Executive Wolvers. Thank you, Vicki.
What's that? Is that a positive or negative?
No, we have not received any yet.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. We're waiting anxiously. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Song.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Steve. So
All
with the roads funding and the supply chain issue or rising costs with fixing our roads, do you anticipate there still being a surplus, or are we sort of on track with that budget?
You know, I would say that we're going to have to keep an eye on it here over the next 90 days. I haven't personally tried to analyze the roads department. I will reach out to our finance manager at the roads, though, and get an update from her on that question. So basically, you're asking if you believe if there's going to be enough budget remaining to get them through 9/30, and I'll follow up with our contact at roads and get that in writing to you.
Specifically, like the Mound Road project.
Okay.
As you're aware, the state allocated $31 million for Mound Road, and it's been said that this is gap funding for the Innovate Mound project. So my concern is, are we, the $261 million that we appropriated last year, is that not enough for this project?
Well, again, I'll defer to our folks at roads on that, but I will get an answer for you on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item, 11A is a contract with UHY LLP, independent auditors for the fiscal year 2022 to 2026 audit for $851,450. I need a motion to recommend this to full board.
So move, Paul.
Made by Commissioner Hawes, supported by Commissioner Farrington. Steve?
So today before you is a recommendation to approve the contract for UHY for financial audit services for the next 5 years. It was a result of a competitive bid that received 3 bids that was posted in July. And we do have representatives from UHY available for detailed questions, or if you just want to hear them introduce themselves. I just met them myself, and I'm horrible with names. So they're in the back corner there. They look like auditors, just like me. You know, we have confidence that UHY fits the qualifications of what we're looking for. And of course, the price, as you may have noticed on the bid spec list, was substantially lower than the incumbent and another firm which did not have a lot of governmental audit experience, which is why we couldn't go with them. I don't have too much more to talk about with this subject, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to field them, or the representatives from UHY can do so.
Well, we have a number of commissioners that want to speak, so why don't we start there? Commissioner Haw.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, you said you had not met UHY previously. Have you worked with them previously?
No, I have not.
And you've talked to other municipalities that have?
I believe Steve Schmiegel had done that. I was out on vacation the week that these were being vetted. The bids were being vetted, so I think he had a call with UHY, and I believe they also did a reference call at that time.
Because one of the justifications for keeping Plan Moran, I believe it was Commissioner Matuzak that brought that issue up last year about going out to bid, was they were familiar with our processes and how the functions of the county work, and that simplified the audit process. So are you starting from scratch with UHY?
Whenever you change auditors, there's going to be a change on the auditor side at the very least. I can tell you that we're not starting at scratch on our end. We do have expectations of what a typical audit in our industry looks like. We know there's we know there's going to be a capital assets work paper. We know they're going to be asking about general fund expenditures versus last year. We know they're going to be wanting to audit certain major grants as defined under 2 CFR 200 when they get into the single audit. These things are known without them asking for it. We know they're going to be doing these types of things. We prepare for that. The audit this year is going to be complicated either way. It was already going to be complicated even if we had stayed with the incumbent. We have a new GASB that covers how we account for leases in the county. and how we account for certain IT, subscription-based IT agreements as well, which is going to be a substantial amount of heavy lifting for myself and my staff. We budgeted about, as I had stated earlier during Plant Moran's presentation of the 21 results, about 2,000 hours last year. We hit that budget. Next year, we're looking at 2,600 hours for the same work. A portion of that's because we're changing auditors, but I would say probably 2/3 of it or more is probably the result of the new accounting standards. There's just a lot of lifting to do there. The work papers, the internal control programs that we do, for example, are all very approachable and usable. Whether it was Plant Moran, UHY, some unnamed third firm, it wouldn't matter. So I think that level of it is fine from our end. It's going to be actually on UHY's end of getting used to us, of showing them around, introducing them to all the key folks that go into making the audit a success each year. So the challenge is going to be on their end and making sure they have enough time to get that work done. But we're going to be ready for them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just heard from Plant Moran that you guys in Plant Moran just basically set this sucker up on a tee for anybody to come in and smack it out of the ballpark. So noting that, I mean, there were 3 bidders. One was the lowest, and we're not going with them. And in terms of their bid tab form that you guys put together, it says they're not a Macomb County vendor, the AccuTrack. I've looked them up. Their HQ's in St. Clair Shores. Their mailing address is in Chesterfield. I live in Chesterfield. I'm pretty sure I'm in Macomb County. So
You're in
is
Macomb
that
County.
just an oversight, an error? Did that hurt
No,
them at
that
all?
Macomb County vendor is what that probably should say. Macomb County vendor, so they haven't done business with the county before.
That's what I wanted clarification for. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I am happy we have bid this out. Too often we sit at this table and we hear, we've always used them, we used them before, we're comfortable with them. And this is an example of why bidding services out, even what we would consider professional services, which are not required to be bid out, is a really important example of why we're doing this. I'm confident you all run a great shop, and new auditors coming in are going to be able to walk right in and continue doing the audit that is pretty much the same no matter which company is doing it, if they're doing it well. So I just want to say thank you for bidding this out and doing the work involved in doing that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Boy, it sure feels like the federal government sits around every year and says, what can we do to Gatsby now? Right? Like the very second you get, they just turn it on its head and everybody's pulling their hair out. Every couple of years, it's a major ordeal, it seems like. I'm thrilled to death that you brought UHY forward. I feel like they were ripped off from an audit, quite frankly, from here a few years back. It's been smarting me for a long time. I want to apologize to them for what happened back then. I'm glad to have them on board. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, I also want to concur that I'm glad we brought in new auditors. That is not a negative to Plant Moran, a fine firm themselves. I think it's always good to have a new set of eyes, not every 4 or 5 years, but every 10, 12 years. The redundancy of doing the same audit over and over, sometimes you miss some obvious things. So UHY has an excellent reputation. I do know Mike over there. I've met him before, and I know about 5 other partners at UHY because that's what I do for a living, is work with CPA firms. So they have a great reputation, and I welcome on board. So thank you.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. What's the $12,000 additional discount?
Be a question for
I'm not complaining
UHY.
about it. I just want to know.
Oftentimes, I mean, speaking for them, I mean, nod your heads if you agree. Oftentimes there's an industry, usually government, not-for-profit, write-down, because oftentimes their rates are higher to private sector counterparts. Is that correct? Okay.
All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
the UBI, they've been sitting here through this meeting. I think it might be nice to bring them up and at least let them say hello.
Hey, I agree. I'm starting to get nervous up here.
Well, Mike and Marlene, I think the stage is set. I was actually going to do it after we had some questions, but my thought is why don't you tell us a little bit about the firm, just high level, and maybe some other clients that you do business with that are similar to Macomb County.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So I'll be back. Good afternoon. My name is Marlene Beach. We're very happy to be here today. We've also brought Paul Bailey and Karen Chaffis with us, a couple other partners in UHY. We've been in business since 1968. Have offices, 5 offices across the state of Michigan. We have one here in Sterling Heights, Farmington Hills, Ann Arbor, Port Huron, and the city of Detroit. We've been doing municipal audits. I've been doing municipal audits my entire career. And you're right, GASB does throw new stuff at us. You know, you just get things going and there's things that are new. You did mention, you know, the learning curve, and it is. We do come in, we realize and that there's going to be some extra time that we have to commit on our part to get to know the county, how you do things. Hopefully we come up, you know, we ask some different questions that haven't been asked before, looking at things at a different perspective and just getting to know, you know, how things operate around here. Having no findings, you know, just the one finding that's phenomenal. It doesn't, without actually being here doing the work, that report says that things are going well around here. That's comforting for us coming in, knowing that, you know, that you've had a good audit, that processes are going well, that you do have internal controls. We will look at them as part of our audit. We'll look at them a little more in detail once again because it's a learning curve for us, but it's great to know what we've got, that coming in we have a solid base. Mike?
Yeah, we look forward to you know, auditing the county. You know, Steve thinks he knows everything we're going to do. We're going to throw some surprises out there as part of our accounting practice. That's what we kind of do. So we look forward to doing it, and we think we'll be able to, you know, make it a smooth transition. And like Marlene said, we're just going to ask a lot of questions and learn so that we can do it from there.
Steve, how long has Plant Moran been our auditors?
I believe it is 10 years.
10 years.
Before I've been here. You were already here for a few years when I got here.
Chair Brown.
Thank you. Who are your largest clients? Municipal clients. Municipal clients, not private clients.
We do Bloomfield Township. Our Port Huron office does about 50 different municipalities. Pardon me? Yeah, St. Clair County, Lapeer County.
So we are going to be your largest client pretty much in the municipal space then?
That is correct.
Okay. Where budgets...
Largest county.
Yes. We had a large influx of federal funds this year that pushed our budget over $1 billion for the first time ever. Have you dealt with that to that degree? I mean, it's going to be a real challenge to plus up and staff up for everything you've got to do here.
We've done a lot of work with ARPA funds. Excuse me. We're currently doing work with the city of Detroit on ARPA funds, about $827 million. We have been studying a lot on ARPA, the different regulations, watching the rules change almost daily. But we have spent a considerable amount of time on
Well, that's
ARPA
reassuring.
funds.
Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome, and look forward to a long relationship with you. It's good for both of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Farrington.
Thanks. I know this matters to some people on this commission. I believe you're the largest accounting firm in Macomb County, are you not? By far.
Yes, we are. That's our headquarters are based in
Which
our
is
Sterling
really
Heights
nice
office.
when you're trying to find those lower level accountants to do the audit.
Very true.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, I do want to bring up one item, not an item from concern, more an item of just transparency. I was made aware that one of the partners, or one of the UHY partners, does do accounting, campaign finance for a couple elected officials here in the county. Mike, if you want to talk about that, I believe, obviously it's not part of our vendor disclosure form as far as a conflict, but they did want to address it here today.
Yeah, we did put in there that Harold Burns is the treasurer for Candace Miller and Mark Hackle. And as of 1/1/23, he's going to resign that position. They wanted to keep him on through the election since it's so close to November. But yes, he will be resigning from that position that date.
Thank you, Mike. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention just so that there's full transparency. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
I was going to say, in this type of audit, that's a good idea for appearance purposes. In the last one, where I think UHY was punished, there was no conflict whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. And that's why it was always bothered me, and I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marlene, Mike, thank you for both being here and talking about UHY. Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item, 11B, ordinance for fiscal year 2023, the August year-end funds budget appropriations ordinance. I need a motion on this.
So Steve.
Moved by Nard, supported by Haw. Steve, you have the floor.
So before you right now, Commissioners, is a budget appropriations ordinance for your August year end. If you go to the ordinance itself, which is on page 610 in your packets, it represents Macomb Community Action September 1st, 2022 start. To refresh some of the commissioners, the purpose for this is that, of course, the budget is approved on a calendar year basis with our general county, of course, is a December 31 county. So these budget appropriation ordinances, I believe you've seen for June, and you will, if you haven't already, for September, occur each year. This is the August 31 year ends that are housed in our Community Action Agency. So by approving this, you'll give them the ability to operate from September 1st till either the end of the calendar year or the date of passage of the 2023 budget, at which time that this budget will become null and void and overridden with that 2023 budget. Are there any questions?
Steve, you're doing a great job for filling in for Steve today, I must tell you.
Have a good teacher.
Seeing no speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next is a budget amendment for the prosecutor's office personnel for $56,600, it looks like here. I'm sorry, pardon me, this is a resolution confirming the stated purpose of ordinance 2021-04 of creating 4 new employment positions. So I need a motion on this.
So moved by Nard.
Made by Nard.
Support Van Sickle.
Supported by Van Sickle. And Andrew, are you speaking on this, or Steve?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sabatini, ladies and gentlemen of the board. There are 3 initial things, and I'll be very brief. Number 1, maybe a moment of silence. The reason Steve Smiegel's not here, while you're all probably aware, he's getting married on Thursday for the first time in his life. So we are Thursday, Commissioner. So give him a call, tell him not a great idea, and we can go from there. So we do have that. Also, the most effective person in the county is clearly Jeff Randazzo. I'm also fostering a dog right now. He's convincing me to try to keep it. So amazing work on our animal control department. And finally, Carlin is taking her daughter to college today, so she was not able to join us. I have some experience in the HR space, and so I'm here on her behalf. Also, we do have our new deputy director, Donna, if Donna would stand up very quickly. Some of you know that Oakland Community College stole your former HR director before me. We have now stolen one from them. Donna is coming to us from Open Community College. So welcome, Donna. And they've got some great talent over there. We're happy to have her here with us. I have reviewed the ordinance as the board, the resolution as the board has attached it to their agenda today, and I am here to answer any questions. We also have human resource experts in the space if you would like to ask any questions of them. I will give it to you, leave it to you for questions.
Okay, Commissioner Haw.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure Pete Provenzano appreciates you doing that, Andrew. I'm supposed to have lunch with him on Thursday. In the document, it says approve a 2022 budget amendment in the general fund for the prosecutor's office, the amount of $56,600 for the purpose of establishing the proper pay grades and maximum salaries for the two positions. I'm sure you sat through the dissertation earlier under public comments where the statement was made there was no input from your office, and I believe you were director of HR back at that time, into these positions. What we did as a board, and I did make the comment, it was a very impressive presentation of materials that we received from the prosecutor. We approved 4 positions at a dollar amount. I think we were remiss in saying not staying within the designated salary classifications. Had you had any input into the classification or the dollar amounts of salary prior to this budget amendment coming to us?
Human Resources and Labor Relations had not had any input. We had had conversations about different positions that may be positions he'd like to have in his office, but we had no input as it came to us through channels we had not otherwise been aware of existed. So no, we had not.
So this recommendation is based on what?
This recommendation is based on the communications director being the exact same pay grade as the communications director for, and I'm using that term generally. So it might be a communications director, it might be a communications manager, depending on where you're at, but it's the highest level communications position in the county. Commissioner Miller over in Public Works has that level of communications person. Executive Hackle has that level of communications person, and our roads department has that level of communications person. With your approval on this request, the prosecutor's office would also have a communications person at that same level. Pay grade 11 is the pay grade.
Okay, I did hear pay grade 12.
Did I say pay grade 12?
No, you didn't say
Okay.
12. It was said earlier.
Generally, the pay grades are about $10,000 apart. It's about an $80,000 job right now. Next year, in complete transparency, it'll be about $90,000. We're doing some very nice things for our employees come January 1st. Right now, it's $80,000. A pay grade 12 is $90,000 a year, give or take a few pennies.
And this recommended salary does include benefits, is that correct?
The $80,000 is the salary, then you would have benefits on top of that, which would be a defined benefit plan for somebody who's already with us, defined contribution for somebody who's not, health insurance, dental, vision, life. Am I missing any benefits?
There's a couple.
Yeah, I mean, Steve's going to tell you like paid time off and sick days, that's garbage. But, you know, those are also benefits we provide.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Andy, when you were HR guy and these numbers came down to you, and I think Mr. Hall mentioned something to this, why wasn't something brought back to Mr. Lucido to say, wait a minute, we understand what, and you have access to our meetings just like everybody else. Why wouldn't somebody come back to Mr. Lucido, Prosecutor Lucido, and say, those numbers that you're asking for are way out of sight, when in fact these are the pay grades for those particular positions? I know Mr. Hall mentioned that, but he touched on it lightly. Back to you again. You have access to our meetings. You know what the numbers were. This is like Mr. Lucido, or Prosecutor Lucido, thank you for asking, but those aren't the numbers that we can give you, even though we knew in advance that you were asking for more. I'm kind of at a loss for that.
Thank you, Commissioner, very much. We have had ongoing conversations with Prosecutor Lucido since that action was taken at the appeals court and it came back to us from the Supreme Court, as Prosecutor Lucido says. We've had ongoing conversations on where those positions should align. Again, it was never brought to our attention prior to, and we did not have any finality on that until very recently through the court process. The Court of Appeals did this morning issue a decision that we are in compliance with what they have asked us to do, and we are moving forward in a way that we think is appropriate in this matter. I think that there is definitely a distinguishing characteristic here, Commissioner Romano. Those numbers were given to Finance. Finance put them in the budget. They were never given to Human Resources. If you can think about when you approve a budget here and we go to hire somebody within the county, we don't, just because we have a dollar figure here that would allow for us to pay max, we don't always pay max to that individual. When I came in, I didn't come in at max because I still got a few increments to get promoted to max. So while that number is there, it's not saying you must give them this salary. It's that you can give them a salary up until within the pay grade according to Human Resources.
When those numbers were given to Prosecutor Lucido, there was a high and a low, and for both of these, and we're talking about just the communications and the executive assistant, and he was within that number when he asked for that amount of money. Does that sound correct to you, even though the pay grade for those positions were not in line with what we're paying other?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner. You know, the board appropriated a certain amount of money. That's why we're coming back to ask to readjust that, because we don't believe that the requested qualifications, experience, and job duties align with that same amount of money. This board was kind enough to appropriate hundreds of thousands of dollars for us to have a classification and compensation study. We went from hundreds of pay grades down to 40-ish pay grades, and we had pay grades separated by as little as $37 a year, annually, $37 a year. Now we've got people on appropriate pay grades. We would love to pay everybody more, but we don't necessarily just say, well, let me back up here. I hear every single day what Oakland County pays people. If we paid all of our positions what Oakland County pays people, we wouldn't have that nice fund balance that we currently have and that you guys have protected over time. So we do look around to see what other people are paying. We have traditionally lagged behind, and that's okay. We still find some really great people because we have some pretty good benefits. If the former commissioner, who always sat to my right, was still here, he would be talking about that all day long. But we have some pretty great benefits that do still attract really competent staff. And what we are concerned about moving forward is if we do bump up certain positions, all those other positions are coming for us. And these are, in my opinion, not union positions, but we are going into bargaining now. They'll all be coming for that. The position that we had, the pay grade that we had assigned for the executive assistant is the same pay grade that we have for administrative assistants throughout the county. It would also be the same pay grade for a judicial secretary. If we were to adjust that up to a pay grade 12 that's being requested, which would be $90,000 this year, $100,000 next year, every single one of those people would be asking for the exact same. And I don't have a good answer to the judicial secretaries as to why they should not get that.
Okay, so again, if I may, Chair, continue a little bit here. I don't know what I'll pick on Commissioner Miller's. I don't know what her communications director does. I don't know what the executive communications director does. I see the title. Is it more harrowing being a communications director for a prosecutor when things get really, and I remember you once saying, we're losing personnel because we can't pay them. I see Sheriff Wickersham standing where you're standing and very upset because he's losing deputies left and right going to police departments because we're not paying them enough. I understand our general fund balance looks good, but are we getting a general fund balance at the cost of good personnel? And I know we have great people here. Thank goodness for that. What I'd like, if Chair will allow, is I'd like Mr. Lucido to come up and possibly explain to us where he came up with the justification for those amounts. Or if in fact we can go somewhere between that amount and what Prosecutor Lucido is looking for. If I may indulge, Chair?
Commissioner, you were asking, I'm sorry, apologize. I think it's over to Mr. Sabatini.
Commissioner Romano, can you just restate what you're asking?
Well,
what
I'd
your
like to
request
see
is?
Prosecutor Lucido up there. He's asking for the money for his communications director and executive assistant above and beyond what we're paying other communications directors and executive account. And I'd like to know what makes him feel, and I'm sure he can justify, where he can feel that his people should be paying more than what we're paying other people in that exact same position, and why. And if he can justify that to HR, I'm sure that they'd be willing to listen to him.
I'll allow that. Prosecutor?
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the questions because they're spot on. After this board approved the budget, we sent the JDQs, we've got memos to the HR department stating the JDQs as well as the job descriptions. We were told by the HR department, prepare a job description. We put the salaries in based on comprehensive studies, as Commissioner Hall, you've indicated. Comprehensive studies. Those studies were garnered from outside the county, from communications directors, from other prosecutors' office, as well as we've taken it from within, and that would be Commissioner Miller's position as the Public Works Director, as well as a PIO, they call it, a Public Information Officer that was in the Executive's office at the time. I don't know nothing about where everybody else stands, but I do know this. These figures were brought to finance, and maybe there's a disconnect, as I think Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Romano, you've indicated, between our finance, who got the numbers, solidified them back to me, which is all of yours that you have in your possessions right now. We went to court. No one's objected to anything. And today, I stand here with three options that are here on your wherefore for this resolution. One, the way to adopt it, the way they want it. Two is do it a different way, or don't do a budget amendment at all. I submit to you, don't do a budget amendment. And here's the reason why. I truly believe with as many law enforcement divisions in this county, 28 of them, the Sheriff's Department has 185,000 residents they represent. We represent the entire county. That's every law enforcement agency that we have to take cases from, that we have to give communications, that we have to have joint communications between us as to what they're doing and what I'm doing. And that's why these numbers were used. We did an extensive dive into this. We came up with stuff from Wayne County that my chief assistant did, talked to Maria and said, can you give me your job description? Can we look at that? Because what they say may prejudice these cases. This isn't about a pipe that broke and water's out there. This is about somebody's life that was taken, and now we have to be spot on. I'm telling you now, I wouldn't have done all this work. They have a duty on their part to look at those numbers, to tell me at that time that we can't do this. But I came to this board and looked at it and opened up myself and said, I did my work. I planned my work. I work my plan now. I would have had this money 15 months ago, 14 months ago. Because I started a long time. And this was my first budget, everybody. I did work with the HR department. I've got memos back and forth and JDQs and job descriptions. And they're coming here today and saying, we didn't do anything until after this decision of the court. That's what's happening here. I started with Brian Jacks. Right afterwards, we were trying to resolve it. And he said, we can give $80,200. That's a classification 11. I said, I didn't ask for that. We've been 12 from day one. I hope that answers the questions, because I have everything there in your packages.
I think it does, Prosecutor. Commissioner, do you have more questions for the prosecutor or anything to clarify?
I'm all set. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't vote on any of the positions, so I'm in a different position than other people. And please don't take that part personally. We added a lot of positions to this department, and we weren't doing that with other departments. My concern is we lost our staff members, because we can't pay what Oakland County did. Patty was offered twice the salary to go over there. Clearly, we don't have the money to do that. But when I look at this, I think about the clerks that don't make $40,000. They're not making $40,000. And we fight over these higher salary positions. And I do get hung up on what are our daily workers thinking when they're watching this. They're scraping by. And until we can take care of them, I don't want to drive morale down any further. I don't disagree that we're underpaying. I agree we're underpaying, but we're underpaying every position all the way down to the lowest position, and probably particularly that group of people. And because of that, I do believe it's already driven morale down that we have given positions to one department when other departments are begging for positions, and Executive Hackle said no, and because they didn't come to us, they didn't get those positions. And my reason for voting no back then was that very thing, was we had a time when all the administrators were just bypassing the county executive and come into this board, and you just lose control of your budget real quick when that's happening, because the board wants to satisfy all these people and they're just handing positions out. And so until we can pay those people that are making $35,000, something to live on, quite frankly, go ahead.
I was like saying, may I speak when you're done, Commissioner? I was not saying hold off. I'm happy to speak when you're done, if I may.
I'm just saying, we're driving morale down, and we got to be fair. If we can't afford to do it for everybody else, we got to stay in the pay grades that we all kind of set and agreed to. Thank you.
Chairman, I speak?
Yep,
Thank you.
you may, go ahead.
So as we were just speaking, of course, a department head or an elected official is going to advocate for their department. That makes complete sense to me. There is a Wayne County executive assistant posted right now between $45,000 and $49,000 a year. So, if we went around and just compared, and I understand that Prosecutor Lucido looked at other positions according to what he just told us. If we went around and just cherry picked the absolute top positions, it would cause significant problems for us countywide. Commissioner Kleinfeld, to your statement, when we have people who are not making $40,000 a year, one of the things that we had done in Human Resources and Labor Relations, because our charge is the entire county, not one department, we had removed that requirement that relatively new employees since 2016 pay for their own health insurance $100 or $150 per month. That disproportionately impacted those people without question, because somebody making $100,000 is going to better be able to afford that likely than somebody making 40. So we do think of all of our employees as a global entity. Also, and I would ask, and I think I saw Crystal here, I believe Crystal was on a call that we had a Human Resources and Labor Relations Solutions call. Crystal, and I'm not putting you on the spot, maybe 2 months ago, where we rolled out what we anticipate will be the new pay grades for 2023. If you're interested, I would ask that you look at that, because we did take a big bite at that issue. It is incredibly hard to exist on $40,000 a year. Our top paid deputies are at $78,000 right now a year. That's after 4.5 years. That's still a low number to attract and retain deputies. We've got needs all over the county without question, and I agree with you, especially at that lower level. And when I say lower level, I mean lower level pay. Every single position here has dignity, and we appreciate the work that they do. Thank you, Commissioner Sabatini.
Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. Question regarding the communications manager, director, whatever you call it. Is there different qualifications for this one? I think Prosecutor Lucido said earlier today that they had to be an attorney because of the language that they use. Is that accurate?
I think I would ask Brian Jacks to come up for that one. Brian and Prosecutor Lucido have had extensive conversations on this, especially the last 3 weeks.
Yes, the JDQ that it was submitted, and that's a job description questionnaire that was submitted by the prosecuting attorney's office, stated that the communications director be an associate degree, and a JD was a preferred requirement, not a minimum requirement.
Okay. So, thank you for that. So, my understanding is when this budget was put together, because I have 3 different pages where the current numbers are in there on the budget, at no point did HR and finance get together that said this number equals this pay grade. I've done a lot of budgets in my life. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Commissioner Farrington, maybe that is my fault as the HR director at the time. I don't have oversight of the budget of any other budget but the Human Resources and Labor Relations Department when I was director. I don't know that I even see the budget before it's presented to the board. It's a huge job for our finance committee and our finance department, and because that's their role, I certainly don't want to be involved in that.
I would recommend somebody going forward matches those up before budgets come.
That's finances.
Thank you. I will say this position was not initially recommended in the executive recommended budget that
All the
came to
more
the board.
reason that you should have looked at it.
Well, but it wasn't recommended, so it wasn't even part.
after the fact, I meant, once it was, though.
Well, once it was, that would be a different discussion.
Because it's
but-
in the documents. It's in a county-wide budget here.
Yeah, the ultimate budget that got approved by this board undertook that as an amendment in the 11th hour. So the numbers were frankly more placeholders, which would be consistent with the Appropriations Ordinance, which would state that the budget is a authorization to spend, not necessarily a mandate. So by leaving the extra cushion in there, if you would, and working with what the prosecutor had given us as what he wanted and what was presented to this board as that amendment in that 11th hour of the budget, it allowed for a conversation then to take place to align to the compensation study after the fact, the appropriate pay.
Thank you. Did either one or both of your groups go to the leadership of our board, the chairman requesting these lower numbers? Or is this something our leadership came up with?
Today we requested, excuse me, the issue that's on the agenda today.
In the microphone, please.
Everybody tells me I'm loud enough, Commissioner. On the agenda today, we requested this. This came from the executive's office.
Okay, so no one from the executive office or board leadership notified the countywide elected official that this is actually pertaining to? Is that correct? None of you guys went to him?
You know, Commissioner, we did not go to him. This is a public document, and I don't believe that he came to us before bringing the amendment for the budget amendment coming here to you folks. So.
People need to get their stuff together. Chair, I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Crystal or Kyle, do you want to address that question that Commissioner Farrington brought up? I think it's warranted.
I would concur with Mr. McKinnon. It is a public document. I did not speak directly with anybody in the prosecutor's office about this exact action to be considered. The requested action and the action being considered are different. I would like to point that out. I think that's kind of getting confused. But to Commissioner Farrington's question, I don't believe there was a direct communications from myself or the executive's office to the prosecutor.
Thank you, Kyle. I know we have some more speakers. Just really quick. So, did legal review this resolution as well? John's in the crowd. Did Corp Counsel review or our independent counsel review this?
Yes, our independent counsel did. We had a discussion yesterday in the executive session about this subject.
Okay. The Corp Counsel, did you review this?
Yeah, I reviewed it. I reviewed it as well.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Song.
As chair of this board, I'm just wondering, did you approve this item to be on our agenda today? So I'm confused.
I did approve this item to be put on my agenda, yes.
Okay, thank you. Andy, the Sheriff's Department has a communications administrator. Is that a similar position?
No, that's a misnomer. The communications administrator is actually the top level administrator in the dispatch area. Dispatch has always been referred to as communications, but it's really dispatch. I mean, she's a dispatcher. She came up through dispatch. She was promoted up. We've recently transitioned her over to the captain's unit there. So that is not the same. She's a dispatcher, and she's in charge of that whole dispatch unit
Okay.
over at the sheriff's office.
All right.
The sheriff's department does not have a communications person, a public communications person. What they have is a sergeant, Yax, who takes care of those issues for them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you, Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a ton of personal thoughts and opinions on the class and comp study, and boy, am I glad I wasn't here when that was approved, because I probably would have been a real hard no. I don't know what it was like before. I know what it's like afterwards. And with the sausage being made for HR, I'm sure it's a ton easier for you folks just condensing all the classifications and things like that. But it still seems like there's positions that fell through the cracks that are very similar, even in name, 100% similar, but the dollar amount is incredibly different. That's just a comment.
May I address that
Sure,
comment?
go ahead.
That would be great. Thank you very much, Commissioner. So I agree with you by name. Many times that's a consequence of the collective bargaining agreement, and then we go into bargaining, and collective bargaining groups are not super comfortable changing the name. And then, it does cause problems because I'm a HR specialist and I'm an HR coordinator, and we're paid very differently. Well, why can't I be a coordinator? So what it really goes back to is the qualifications and experience. As Brian talked about, an associate's degree is going to command a different pay grade than a JD.
And that's the in-depth part that just us as commissioners, we're not diving into.
Absolutely.
We don't see, we see the matrix and, that's it. So, but my second thing is, okay, so on the agenda, there's two items. There's a requested action, and then there's an action to be considered by committee. If I'm understanding this correctly, the motion was for the resolution. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
No.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Is that yes? He's saying yes. Okay. What happens if this fails? Either to Andy, to the chair, to board chair, if it fails, what happens next?
I was made aware of this ordinance today by Michelle Kobola in our office. I was not aware, and I'm sorry, it's a resolution, right? Now, I keep saying ordinance. It's a resolution. So I was not aware of the resolution. I'm certain that there are reasons for it. I was not given those reasons. Kyle is a great professional that we are fortunate to have working with us. Crystal's a great professional that we are fortunate to have working with us. I just didn't know about that. We had requested a motion for a budget adjustment and to clarify the board's intent on pay grades throughout the county.
So this sort of stems from the court ruling, though, correct?
Correct.
So we're doing a resolution to approve what we've already done? Am I missing something in here?
No, I don't think that you are. The court decision was to post the jobs or come back for a budget amendment. We are trying to not have to go back to court in any way, shape, or form. So there's a controversy, right? After the court comes down, we go to the prosecutor, or he comes to us, post the positions, we say, good, we're working together through it. We have a difference of opinion on where these should be placed. We believe that that's HR's position within the county. The prosecutor believes that he has the funds. I think that's all very clear today. We believe that the intent of this board over time has been to allow for HR to set the class and comp in the county, as is evidenced through the class and comp study that both you and I hate at this point because all we talk about is that. So we had come back to try to put this behind us. Legislative intent is that we are going to stick with the class and comp because the alternative is a huge increase in our budgets, and we're concerned about that.
Okay, one last thing, I think. So if we do approve the resolution, does that budget amendment get encompassed with that resolution? Is this all done in one action, or are we going to have to do two separate actions?
I'm sorry, Crystal, I'm looking at you. I don't know because
I'm going to stop asking questions.
Well, the resolution, again, I'm not quite sure. We had asked for a budget amendment. I believe Mr. Adair can speak to that. But as far as the resolution, I don't know that any of us can speak to that.
I wouldn't be able to comment about this resolution and what it would mean if it was or was not.
Great, thank you. You've all turned me to a no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to clarify, Commissioner Song, the initial request for the budget amendment was put on the agenda initially by me, but obviously I was not here yesterday, and there was, during that meeting, obviously there was executive session that was discussed. So just to clarify your question.
Can I just respond? And just a partial response for Commissioner Kraft. If you look at the recommendation sheet on page 2, third paragraph, if the commission wishes to keep the compensation for these two positions at the $93,000 level and rejects the amendment, then the prosecutor will be asked to justify those levels to HRLR satisfaction before the positions are posted, so as to minimize allegations of equal pay violations by other county employees. Commissioner Kraft?
Sorry, I had Kyle.
Sorry, I'm going to repeat myself. So if you look at the recommendation sheet on page 2, it's the third paragraph. My understanding is that if we don't pass this resolution today, then our intent is to keep the compensation for these two positions at the $93,000 level. I'm hesitant to support this resolution, although I understand Commissioner Kleinfeld, what you said earlier about making sure that we have equal pay and that we don't pay one department's communications person more than the other. I think we've gone past that, though. I think that conversation should have been made last year. We've adopted a budget, and we have received decisions from the Supreme Court. And so I feel like we're sort of backpedaling by going back, and now we're changing the amount that we've adopted. So I'm very conflicted, and I don't know why this is even before us, other than this being just another hurdle for us to have these positions posted. It's gonna be December, and we're still gonna be having this conversation. And I'm just tired of it. So I'm not going to vote for this resolution today. That's.
Thank you,
I have to
Commissioner.
say. Thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. In my previous life as an engineer, I worked for a large engineering company in this county, and I believe they had 4 different job classifications for engineers. So I am well aware of many, many organizations having people who have the same general skill having different job classifications. I want to suggest, no offense, Prosecutor Lucido, maybe he did himself a disservice by not naming this a legal communications director instead of just communications director, because I could certainly see some communications directors needing more skills than other communications directors. And I'm not going to pick on examples, but I can certainly see somebody with a legal background doing a good job as a prosecutor's communications director, needing more education and more specific skills, and therefore would certainly justify that particular job classification being different than other communications directors that, not to insult anybody, I would classify as more general in their nature than somebody with a legal background. So I think it's all well and good that we have more than one communications director category, maybe general and legal or something like that, but I certainly support hiring the prosecutor's communications people at level 12. Thank you.
Yes, and Commissioner, we do have multiple levels of communications people within the county. As we're talking about, as you go up, you have a highest level position. As you would with those engineers, you have a highest level position. As you pull one of them up higher, all the rest of them trail, and that's how you blow the budget. That's my response to that.
I don't necessarily agree that all the rest have to trail. I don't see, maybe if we have, I don't know how many levels you have communications directors at. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. And if it's 3, maybe it should have been 4. So all I'm saying is, in the past, we may not have anticipated needing people at a higher level, and so we never did it, and maybe we should have.
Yeah, and that's what we had in the past. You're absolutely correct. Before our class and comp study, we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of titles, and they were all paid within a very small dollar amount of each other. And it was absolute chaos and completely impossible to administer, as you can imagine, as an engineer, as you can imagine.
You know, I could also see somebody sneaking through a communications director calling them something else for a prosecutor's office. And so maybe your study missed communication, people that we might call communications directors in other organizations. Anyway, I stand on what I said. I would support Prosecutor Lucido with a level 12 position. Thank you.
Okay, we're still here on the first round. Commissioner Zinner?
I want to thank Commissioner Arano for bringing up the questions, Commissioner Farrington for what he explained, and especially Commissioner Song for explaining the drag out. Again, I will be an absolute no.
Commissioner Nard?
Commissioner Van Sickle, I guess I'm going to kind of echo what he said, because I've worked in customer service all my life, but there's different levels of customer service. If I'm a customer service representative that has more experience and more education, I don't expect for some entry-level customer service rep to make more than me. Of course, I may make 50,000, she may get 23. You said that the sheriff's department director was at first a dispatcher, but now a sheriff is doing that job, which, you know, that's a different person. That's a different level of education, level of experience. And I'm seeing someone that's going to be a communications director in the prosecutor's office, someone that has a legal background and probably have more education and more experience at that, and would probably deserve more of that, because actually we're dealing with, as he said, somebody's life. Somebody has gotten murdered, and we need this family to get resolved. And when someone is communicating to the public about it, we need that person to be well-versed, not just an ordinary person speaking on that behalf. So I'm going to have to support him in giving that person a level 12.
Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the communications? Does the sheriff have a communications person?
They have a communications person who's a sergeant, not a dedicated communications person. They use one of their sergeants to handle that role.
I think the unique thing about the position that is being considered today is an attorney position.
It was not requested to be an attorney position. It was requested to be an associate's degree position.
Associate.
With a preferred, it could be a JD, preferred, but associate's level position.
What is it posted as?
It is not posted at this time. It's requested to be an associate's level position.
The thing about having the pay scales, we get all these many unions, many positions, and people are always looking to see what the next person is being paid. And not only staff, but also the other departments, department heads. It's important to try to develop some consistency, right? That's what we're trying to, that's what that whole comp study thing that we have before us, which I voted no on, by the way, back in the day. But we've got it. We're trying to keep things in line because it was so clumsy before, and, you know, has been better under new leadership. So that's the goal. That was the intention with this matrix, to try to maintain some consistency. But there has to be a recognition that some positions are just different positions, right? I mean, I heard a lot about 26 different units across the county and responses for emergencies and how do we report to the press. How do you calculate that in when you're trying to develop a job classification? I mean, that's different than what the average person typing a press release, you know, for our office even say, or for Public Works or anywhere else around the county. I mean, how do you quantify that level of skill to know that the right things to say? You'd hate to have someone put something in a press release that says something that could compromise the case, and let a criminal go free perhaps because of some unintended consequence. Can you speak to that? I mean,
Yes.
that's where the rubber meets the road. Those are the fine points. That's really what we got right here, right?
Yeah, Commissioner, and you know, is that amount $1 million? Is it $2 million? What's the right compensation for that? You charged us with creating those classification and compensation levels, along with the education and the experience. The prosecutor certainly doesn't have any problem getting out press releases. That is not an issue that he has at this time, from what I can observe. And getting out appropriate press releases, from what I can observe. You all see at the bottom that it says all charged parties are innocent until proven guilty. Those are the magic words. That's what you have to put on the bottom of a press release from the prosecutor in order to not fall on the other side of that statute, or of that law, I guess, if you want to say. So that, I don't think that that requires a JD to understand that. I don't know who currently does his press releases, but they do get that in every single one. And as any other department, it is ultimately the elected official or department head who's responsible for making sure that those things are appropriate. Whomever comes in is going to have to receive some level of training. Doesn't matter who it is, unless it's the woman coming from Wayne County, who it very well may be, because she may have a pension, she may want to come join us. You know, there are advantages to working for us. Mr. Fassard came from Wayne County. I don't know what his level of compensation down there was, but I would anticipate it was very close, if not more, than what we pay. So we do attract, many of our assistant prosecutors are coming from Wayne County right now. So we're able to attract good talent with what we pay. Norb Franz is Commissioner Miller's PR person. I think he has a great wealth of experience. He could fill this role without question. And he understands that public relations piece. So I do think we pay an acceptable amount at a pay grade 11 for Prosecutor Lucido to get the position that he's seeking.
There's been a lot of conflict between the administration and the prosecutor's office. What's the difference between the numbers? What's the difference between the two positions? I mean,
it's about $10,000 right now. So $80,000 for pay grade 11, $90,000 for pay grade 12, give or take. Next year, they both go up by about 10 grand, according to what we're looking to negotiate for the upcoming year. So next year, it's $100,000 for pay grade 12 and $90,000 for pay grade 11.
and you couldn't come to some agreement to say, listen, let's. You couldn't come to some agreement to reach out and say, listen, we recognize the stress here and anyway.
Yeah, we did go back and forth with the prosecutor, and he said post him at what I put in there, you know. So that's why we are here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really do believe that every employee at the county provides an important service. We don't have people we hire to, I don't know, sit in a supply room and not do anything. Because if the supplies don't flow, people are hurt. If the tax clerk doesn't mail out the tax bill, we are all hurt. So I really, I've been hearing a lot of stuff about how important the prosecutor's office is, and it is very important, but it is no more important than the rest of the services we provide in this county. And we set up a pay metrics. I was not here. I would have had issues with the pay metrics. I come out of organized labor. But I was not here, but it is what we have. And we have it in order to promote fairness among all the classifications. And I think that's really important. I think that is really important. And I think when we look at the budget that we passed, the assumption that all of us had was that this was going to somehow fit in that pay grade. We didn't pull the pay grades. We didn't look at the pay grades. That's on us. We should have done that. And every new position added forward in any budget we approve needs to have the language subject to fitting in the pay matrix or whatever the appropriate language is, so that this mistake doesn't happen again. But the reality is we approved this budget. I actually didn't vote for some of these positions because I questioned whether they were needed or not. But we did approve this budget in this amount. And so I'm really drawn here because I feel very passionately that these salaries should not be up. They should be at the level that is most appropriate in this budget. And that raising it, and I said I come from organized labor. I know what my position is going to be the next bargaining unit meeting. And that's a problem, I think, for all, frankly, all of you, not all of me. So I'm really I'm really struggling with this vote. We passed a budget with that number. I think that was our mistake. I think we may have to pay for that mistake. But I am very much opposed to raising these amounts because I think it's unfair to everybody else who works for us and does important work in this county. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. So it looks we're on the second round here. I just have a few questions really quick while we're on the first round. So going back to that study, it's kind of funny that's been brought up today. I was also a no vote, by the way, on the study. But back then when we approved that study, the key thing was we were going to fix, condense, resolve, I'm trying to find the proper words here, of all these different types of classifications that we had in this county, because it was, and this was before you, Andrew. This was prior, and so that we wouldn't run into a situation similar to this in the future. And it seems like we're still talking about the same things, but nevertheless, this position specifically, though, I know you're talking about collective bargaining. This is a non-union position, correct? This is an at-will position.
Yeah, so we're talking about position. There's really two positions. Don't forget that. There's a communications position that we're talking about at $90,000. There's also a clerical position at $90,000 that the prosecutor is asking for. There are several non-union positions that are in alignment with that clerical position at $50,000, $60,000 administrative assistants that are both unionized and non-unionized. It's funny that you say, like, that was before me.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of after me.
Mm-hmm.
So during my time at HR, everything was perfect, right?
Absolutely.
So there are positions within the county that are administrative assistants. We have them in AFSCME, we have them in UAW. Mm-hmm. We have them unionized, we have them non-unionized. It's another area that we can continue to work on cleaning up, but they are sort of all over the map, and it's a hangover from a long time of being accounting. So we are working through those things. Also, as I mentioned, the judicial secretaries, we've got those positions that are non-union, at-will, appointed by the judges, that are that same pay grade. So it's two positions that we're talking about, a clerical and a communications director.
So in regards to communication from HR to the prosecutor's office, it said that HR was evaluating the administrative assistant classification that was requested, and they were going to get back to the prosecutor. Did they ever get back to the prosecutor on that?
I believe that Brian's here behind me. I believe Brian talked to one of the people in the prosecutor's office saying that we are far way away, but we were still working through the exact direction that we were going to go on that. I don't know that we gave them a pay grade on that. I can ask Brian that. No.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions that I have. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. A whole lot of clarification. Actually, organized labor was happy about the compensation study because we knew we were underpaying most of our employees, and the vast majority of them were going to end up getting a pay raise because of it. I was worried about that. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to break the county. So the employees really wanted that study. There were a handful of positions, there were a few positions that had the opposite effect. They came in as though they were being overpaid. Most of those were in the higher end. Most of the lower ones, it was like, we are not paying these employees correctly.
If I may, Commissioner, that's why we were bleeding money $37, $500 at a time. So it didn't allow us to pay positions more. That was really the problem, because we had such a vast array of different salaries.
So clarification number 2, just with respect to what we've done, what the decision we made, we make decisions every year at budget, and every year over and over again during the year we amend the budget based on new information or the fact that we were missing information. So that, I just want to point out, is not a new thing. Whether you vote for or against this, that is something that we do and we exercise all the time, so it's just not new. I just wanted to point that out. And the last thing I want to talk about here, and I'm going to touch on it again at the end of the meeting, but on a different topic, is communication. Prosecutor Lucido had every right to know this was on the agenda. I don't really care who's responsible. It's just a little bit of courtesy in this county that is not happening all over the place. HR has every right to know what this resolution is, and finance, and what the heck it means. That's on our department. We put it on the agenda. We should have had a conversation with them to let them know what it means relative to their request for a budget amendment. I mean, we're all acting like we don't even work together, like none of us are associated with each other. It's very frustrating. And even the prosecutor had every right to know what this thing means. He figured it out on his own. We didn't tell him. We ought to have a little bit of communication. I'm tired of this. And by the way, this thing where we all hate each other and nobody's talking to each other, going to cost us a hell of a lot of money coming down the road. And this is a lecture to everybody, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're going to be hiring attorneys for every damn department before this thing is said and done, because people can't have a conversation with each other. So I've had my little 2 cents on that. I'm going to have a little bit more on it at the end of the meeting, but that's all I have, and I promise I won't ask to speak again on this issue. Thank you.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I could say, somebody get that promise in writing.
Or we'll hire lawyers.
Thank you, Don. I just want to point out, we had a class and compensation study for a reason. To try and categorize positions. The Commissioner Song made the comment that she's tiring of this issue. So am I. Very, very much so. So am I. But I can assure you, we have an HR department who has the responsibility of looking at these recommendations, categorizing them, putting a salary range on them, and making the department heads aware. The communication issue, I think Commissioner Farrington hit the nail on the head with that about an hour ago. What you can count on is we're not going to be tired of this issue, because if I'm Candace Miller, tomorrow I put in a budgetary amendment for a communications director at $90,000. If I'm Wickersham, I put in a budgetary amendment for a communications director at $90,000. We've got department heads that are responsible for their groups, and I appreciate, Pete, 100% you trying to get $90K for this position. I was a supervisor and assistant director at General Motors. I always tried to get the maximum amount for my employees. Didn't get it, because I had to deal with an HR department who said that person sitting over there doing identically the same work as yours doesn't make that much. So As far as tiring of this issue, we don't adopt this resolution, it's only just begun. There's going to be every department, there's going to be every union coming into this group, and we're going to be making these decisions for the rest of this year, at least to try to get through this budget process. Either these guys are doing their job or they're not, and a lot of the conversation has been somebody's not. I don't want to specifically identify who, but as far as tiring of this issue, I made the comments yesterday. I cannot repeat them. We've only just begun.
Thank you,
Chair.
Commissioner, if I may. Commissioner Sabatini, I apologize, if I may.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. I don't know that I have been expressing that strongly enough. We keep talking about the communications position, which there are not many of throughout the county. I want to highlight the fact that there are a lot of clerical at that experience and education level that has been requested, and there are 50-ish of those positions. So every judge is going to come and want their clerical person, their secretary, to make that same amount. Candace has an administrative assistant. Commissioner Miller has an administrative assistant. Clerk Ferlini has an administrative assistant. That will all be coming. I agree with you.
Commissioner Romano, second round.
Last time. I just want to know where we're at. Let me get my head around this. So we have two choices here. One is to adopt this resolution, and that would be a yes vote. Deny the resolution, which would be a no vote. Is there a third option that I'm missing here? I'll go to the chair if I may.
The only there would be to postpone, but I think we've discussed this pretty detailed. I think it's either A or B.
So we have either to approve the resolution, I just want to make sure I'm all right, deny the resolution, or postpone it. And if we postpone, I don't understand, what are we postponing it for? Good reason?
Like I said, you were looking for three options. I gave you a third, but I wouldn't recommend a third.
So the first thing coming up now is approve the resolution, am I correct?
We have a motion on the floor to do that.
Thank you, Chair.
And we have Commissioner Song, second round.
Third round, second.
Actually,
Okay.
yes.
So just
Well, hold on, Commissioner, because that technically is third round. So let me go to Commissioner Brown. We're still in the second round, because he was only in the first round, I believe.
Are there 9 rounds?
This is... Go ahead.
All right, thank you. You know, Vice Chair Haas said it pretty good. I mean, the HR department's been charged to manage our employee classifications and try to keep them all in line, right? I mean, do we trust them to do the job or not? There's been a lot of animosity between the prosecutor's office and the administration of late. It's caused a lot of mistrust and problems. And this is what we've caused. But we have a HR department. We're part of our organization. It's part of our team that we're supposed to support, right? I mean, are we going to trust them to do the job, or are we going to let everyone come up here, like Harold said? It's about setting precedent, right? Everyone around the county is watching this and see what's going to happen. And he's right. They're going to be lined up at the door. Maybe all right if you feel like, if you take them individually, if you want to do that. I mean, you know, we all got rules to operate. We've all operated under these same parameters. When we hired people, and we were filling this office as staff, you know, we had to follow procedures. We only had to operate within these parameters that we had to operate under, and everyone had to play by the same rules. You know, are we bending the rules for, you know, my friend, or are we not? Something to think about. Thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. I agree. It's HR's job to maintain salary levels and job descriptions and all that kind of stuff. However, looking forward into the future, I don't know that every job we're going to have forever is totally defined in our current job descriptions. I think we'd be a little bit egotistical to say we've done everything we ever needed to do and there will never be a new type of job category ever. So again, I would support possibly a new, while HR is controlling this, I would totally support possibly another level of job category here. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. In that class and comp study, and I'm sorry, that's like a swear word now, right? It's like a swear word. They did provide us a matrix for assessing new jobs that come through, and that has education is a piece of that, experience, ability to act independently, financial oversight, and several other criteria that go into a matrix to make sure that we're kicking out equitable salaries for equitable positions. I think Commissioner Matuzak, or maybe Commissioner Nard, made the comment that we do have to worry about equity when it comes to who we pay and how we pay them. That's a huge concern of HR as well, which is why we went through that, and which is why people will come and say, I'm different than this person, I'm paid less, and if you don't pay me more, I'm going to be at a plaintiff's attorney, and now we're going to be hiring. Commissioner, I'm sorry. They turned the air off, right, just to get us out of here? Okay, all right. They're going to be at the door with plaintiff's attorneys at that point as well.
Commissioner Song?
Thank you, Chair. I don't see it that way. I see that we passed a budget with the amount that we did. And when Commissioner Miller or whoever wants to come to us during budget season, then I think that's when we deal with it. We can't make assumptions that that will happen. We are talking about this resolution. And just to be clear, Commissioner Romano, I believe that the ball is back in our court right now. And if we don't pass this resolution, then the ball goes back into the prosecutor's court. Because according to this recommendation, if we don't pass this resolution, then he's going to have to take it up with HR again to come up with his case as to why these two positions should be the $93,000 level or not. So frankly, I don't see us winning at all here. Whether we pass this resolution today or not, they're still going to have to deal with it on their own. So I'm going to vote under moral grounds that we passed this budget, and this compensation study should have been a discussion during budget season, and it's not. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Prosecutor Lucido, I got a quick question for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I do need to clear up a lot of issues that this board at this time.
Well, I've got one quick question.
Sure.
And I'll let you clarify, but it's very, very brief. I'll allow you that latitude. But when you requested this, based on your budget, you requested it based on the pay rate in the budget that's listed, the $78,000 to $90,000, correct?
Precisely, and I not only brought it to the HR department to get the JDQ, which means I can't just go up to finance and sit down with, at the time it was Mr. Delden, and Mr. Smeagol has to look at those numbers. Mr. Delden has to look at those numbers, and Mr. Delden even indicated to me, we're going to give you the attorneys you need, but you can use those attorneys to do your communication director or executive administrative assistant to the administration. I want everybody to know they wanted to turn lawyers into something different and said you can use that because we've given you that money for the lawyer. How would that look on the community that I'm supposed to go ahead and serve if I don't have enough lawyers then? It's my fault. That's why we asked for those positions so we can line them up. But to your point, Commissioner Sabatini, I have memos to the HR to ask them, is this in conformity? Is this right? And everybody's not asking that question. And that's why I'm here now, and you're right. I appreciate that, Commissioner. What you just said was true. I had no notice of this. We have a court lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen, that went to the Supreme Court, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. My attorney didn't. He was doing it for public. And they said post the jobs. Don't impound his money. And today I'm hearing, well, we got a case study, and we got this, and we got that. What you've got here is, it says they'll go back to the prosecutor to justify those levels, not in the court order. The judge said post them, as the prosecutor had won. And the money, he's allowed to spend it the way he sees fit, because it's his office, branch of government, under the law. And there's no dispute of this. Why would I spend all this time? I'm listening to this and saying, why did I file a lawsuit? If I believe that the charter gave all the power to the executive. I filed a lawsuit because the power is with the board for checks and balances. And today I come here and I hear, for the first time, we had to throw together something to show you. We did our work. I'll get the memos. I'll bring them in here tonight. Because I'm upset that I went all the way up and we spent all those dollars, and now we're coming here to do a job that should have been done from the beginning in the HR department with the finance. Remember, it was my first budget. With all of that work that I did and put together those job classifications, I shouldn't be doing this. It should have been the HR department that gave me the job classification and said, this is the pay range. That was given to them, as Commissioner Farrington stated. Three levels of this, and I'm sitting here now fighting with myself that which I've won in the court of law. I don't understand it. And I don't want to keep the bickering going on. But had they done the job from the beginning, we wouldn't be here. Because they could have made it clear, we got this case study, we got this. You know what we're arguing about, everybody? $10,780 as it relates to the communications director. For next year, it's $90,000. He said it. It went up 2% from where it was when I went before. The other executive assistant, it's like no other. Nobody has 7 people they're working for. We've been working Angie out of class. That's what we've been doing. I've been fighting every time I come here saying, I need the people because I'm working people out of class. I came into a dysfunctional office when I got here. You all know it. There was nobody up there. And I've asked the HR director at the time, I need help. I asked the executive, I need help. Yeah, I'm upset. Yeah, I really am. Because all I had to do was sit down.
Prosecutor, I wanted to give you the time to clear up some of those things, because Andrew did have responded to a lot of those questions, so I wanted to be fair and allow you up here and answer some of those questions. I did specifically want to ask that question
But this is like no other job, though.
But I think that you've answered all the questions that have been brought up here today. I don't see any other speakers. I'm not going to allow any other speakers. I think we're to the point now we need to vote on this, so we'll call the vote.
Chair, could you clarify the difference between the yes vote and the no vote one more time so we know what we're voting on?
Yes, Commissioner. So right now, we have a motion on the floor to recommend the stated resolution to full board.
And what exactly does that resolution mean?
It means exactly what it says here on our agenda, confirming the stated purpose of the ordinance of creating 4 new employment positions, specifically to the budget amendment that has been brought to us through Deputy Finance Director and HR.
So we're confirming our previous action of approving the budget?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. That's why I'm...
May I try, Mr. Chair? Just a yes vote on the motion in front of us means that we reduce the salary rates as listed in here. We're cutting his budget by a certain amount. If you vote no, it is reverting back to the budget that we passed.
Correct. Okay. Is everyone clear?
Yes. I think so. Should we vote now?
Okay, the vote is up. Please vote.
The vote reset. I'll have to prompt it again. I'm sorry.
There it is.
Motion fails 4-9. Commissioners Brown, Farrington, Kraft, Nard, Romano, Sabatini, Vansicle, Song, and Zinner voting no.
Okay, motion dies. Next item is public participation. This is an opportunity for public participation for those who would wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issue. Anyone from the public like to speak? Going once? Twice? We'll close public participation. Next item is commissioner comments. Trying to get there, commissioners. I know Commissioner Kleinfeld wanted to speak. Commissioner Kleinfeld, you're first.
Thank you. There was recently a FOIA request for any and all communication between me and as well as our department and the auditors who conducted the forensic audit. The FOIA request came from a well-known attorney in the county. I put it on your radar a year ago. I want to put it back on your radar again. It would be a huge embarrassment to this commission if an attorney out there got that audit before we did. We paid for it, we were supposed to, and we were promised a presentation on it. They have not fulfilled that obligation. They have the money in hand, and I would like it to be a finance agenda item to discuss possibly suing the auditing firm. If we send them a letter, they can send us the proof that they can't give us the audit. But everybody says, well, we can't, the Attorney General said, or the state police. Nobody has given us anything in writing that says there's any reason at this point that we can't have that audit. And I am assuming that this attorney that made that request is not going to stop there. I didn't have anything to report to him, because Yo and Yo shut down and stopped talking to me a very long time ago, and they have an obligation to give us a product that we paid for. So I'm really asking this board again to reconsider. It does belong under finance. It's why I was so angry that I was stripped of that chair, because this was my number one thing, was to see this through. I'm leaving the commission, and it's still sitting out there all these years later. So, with respect to the communication that I said I'm going to touch on again, we had a closed session on attorney-client privilege. There's an issue that the attorney's been working on that affects you folks up here that we haven't been told about. I came across it through another means. I called Don and asked him about it. But if we had a closed session yesterday on attorney-client privilege, it was the perfect opportunity for our attorney to address an issue that he's legally looking into. It won't affect me, it won't affect Jeff, and it won't affect Julie, but it's probably going to affect everybody else. You have not been communicated with, as far as I know. I haven't seen anything in writing, and I don't understand that. This one team, one mission, the communication doesn't go to everybody. It goes to small groups of people, and the rest of us are kind of always wondering why everybody knows what they're talking about, and we don't have any idea what everybody's talking about. It's terrible. And it's not just this body. It is, as we've seen, it's other departments too. There's anger and people aren't communicating with each other. I'm going to be gone. I hope that part improves. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday, we had 2 votes as far as legal representation for one of the elected officials here. We're all pretty tired of handling things with his department. But at the end of the day, and we asked General Counsel on the second vote, but we didn't ask him on the first vote, it's the same premise. He has to have legal backing. It is our job to give it. I cannot have a reconsideration since I voted yes, so I implore those that voted no, someone come forward and do a reconsideration so that we can fill our legal duty to represent them. No matter where you stand on the issue, that has nothing to do with it. We are obligated to give him representation. And please get with Chairman Brown to let him know if you're one of the no votes that we can reconsider so that we can fulfill our legal obligation. Thank you.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you. I'm going to take issue with Commissioner Kleinfeld. I read all my emails, and I've heard you say, well, maybe I didn't see that on my email or I didn't see that on my message. I think Chair Brown disseminates a lot of information to all of us. I really do. At least I get it. Sometimes I don't, but whatever the case is, I think I'm on top of my game. The other thing I want to bring up is whoever, and we have all made different votes. Each one of us has made a different vote. I resent the fact when somebody comes to me and says to me, why did you vote that way? You shouldn't have voted that way. You know what, folks? I think I've said this to people that came to city council as new people, and I've said it, I think, to some of the new people here. Vote your conscience. If you can go to bed at night and sleep, you've made the right vote. So the next time somebody approaches to me, I won't be as kind with my words as I have been in the past. And I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to say this, but Joe, maybe people are just interested in your thought process. Well, maybe not. But if I ask you, that will be my intent, to be interested in your thought process because you have good thoughts many times.
I bet that's true.
Anyway, what I was going to say is I agree with Commissioners Kleinfeld and Matusik. I would like to see the low-end jobs in this county raised up some. I think that people have a tough time living on some of the monies we're paying as full-time employees. On the other hand, I don't see that as any reason. I truly believe that HR needs to look at the classifications they have and possibly make a new classification, because I don't think that as we go down the road, every single job we get is going to fit into one of the existing job classifications. That's pretty naive on our part, I think. So, thank you.
Commissioner Haw.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've suggested this before. There's about 12 requisitions in our room right here. Take a look at them. Take a look at the starting salaries. Take a look at the maxes. If anybody thinks a family of 4 can live on $29,000 starting, I don't know what planet they're living on. But it certainly doesn't mean you push somebody to the max salary classification right out of the chute. I had to grow up into that. So just take a look. They're talking about not a new compensation study, but a way to maintain and keep our employees in Macomb County. And Veronica, I can only say to you, I don't know what this issue is that can impact all of us that you're obviously aware of, so maybe you can clue me in privately, and I won't say, don't ask me how I vote. How's that? So I have, Chair.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm actually not going to sleep well tonight, Commissioner Romano, because, I do respect everyone's vote, and I completely agree with you that everyone should respect our vote as well. The previous motion failed before us, but I'm not going to sleep very well tonight because I know that this battle, for lack of a better word, is not over. These jobs are not going to get posted, and the prosecutor is going to have to make his case with the HR department. So I'm very conflicted because I feel that the work that we do is so important, but I felt like our vote today didn't really mean anything because this battle it's not going to end. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. I agree completely. I really didn't care about the amount. It could have been the lower amount, but we had our stand. We made our decision along, whenever we made our decision, how many months ago? A year ago, whenever it was. And I felt we had to keep that because we just get rolled over and over and over again. So if we don't if we don't take that stand again, we just have to. We just have to. And I think it is outrageous to me that groups or people, more than one person, does not listen to what the judges have said, or a judge. I don't understand that. That is unheard of. I mean, maybe there were other people years ago, but I guess there were. It just is incomprehensible to me that people do not listen to what the judge's order is. I just think some judges should be getting mad about it, as far as I'm concerned. This should not be happening. I agree.
Seeing no other speakers, need a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Made by Haw. Supported by Nard. Please vote. We already had public participation before Commissioner comments, Joe.
Who made that motion to adjourn?
That was Commissioner Haw, supported by Commissioner Nard.
Don't ask me
Please
why I
vote.
made that vote. What?
See everybody tomorrow.